Good evening, good evening, good evening. It is that time of evening. It is a time of evening for the quarantine minds, where quarantine minds want to know. This is a late night show, the late night show for the plagued. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to this premiere. Tonight it is a British invasion. It is a British invasion. Our quarantine minds, all the way over from England, is a mega geek from London, Ian, and the Revanite from Liverpool. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. So, gentlemen, we're talking about our quarantined minds. Tell me a little bit what's going on over there. What's going on over there with Britain and London? Can you start us off, Ian? What's it like over there?
Well, it's the same as before, but I was just watching the news broadcast, and they were talking to the mayor, and he was talking about how the government should have reacted faster than they did, and they showed him a clip, or I think it was Acton Station, where everybody's going to work in the morning, people that had to, and they weren't separating themselves, they're all clumped together. Some were wearing masks and they're all jumping on the tube. And the reporter was saying, what do you think of that? People are not listening to the advice of the government. And the mayor quite rightly said, look, that's just a few people you're looking at. He said majority of the people literally are, buying by the rules. So, we shouldn't really have a go at them, because only a few people are spoiling the broth, so to speak. So, and that's the last bit of news I saw so far over here. I mean, it's very peaceful. It's very sunny. There's hardly anybody out on the road. And majority of the people are staying home, trying to save the NHS, according to the government, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to put this in perspective, Ian is coming from London, where we're talking about the largest city in Great Britain, and it's usually a hopping city. It's very rare to be quiet. And
Yep.
Yeah. So, and how's Liverpool going there, the Revanite?
Well, it's I'd say similar to what Ian said. It's a very sunny day outside today, especially, and I sort of don't really see that many people. See occasional people walking around or whatever, and you see, I've seen like the rate of cars slowly increase, but it's still quite quiet. But yeah, I've talked to a couple of my neighbors at distance or whatever, but people, I think the majority of people are still keeping to lockdown. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's an interesting point that Ian brought up, that the media is showing, oh, look at these idiots here. But when you consider the overall population, it's not like it's being overrun like World War Z or something to that effect. Yes. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the majority of people are saying, doing what the government is saying, and quite rightly so. If we were to take everything that we've heard as gospel, of course, because you never know with anything these days with access media or what the politicians are saying to you. But, I take it as read is that they don't want a lot of people to die. So, of course, I'm going to listen to what they say, But there are some idiots out there, like I heard a report a couple of days ago that they had to arrest a couple of boys for spitting on people. What's that all about? What, I don't understand why people are like that. Why do that?
Yeah. Hopefully they were on meth, because then that could be an easy explanation.
I don't think they were somehow. I think they were just being mean. But
exactly, that's more frightening for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just for the record, I do not encourage anyone to use meth. It is illegal and very bad for you and your teeth.
And drugs are bad.
And what we talk about with the quarantine minds, our brains, I swear, are shifting and evolving, and just this whole sense. And the Revanite, you were speaking about your quarantine mind maybe didn't just start with this plague. When did your quarantined mind begin?
Yeah, I feel like so like in 2016 is when I originally moved to England from Spain, and from then my life here started pretty good. I got a job, and I was living in Preston instead of Liverpool at that time, and we were renting out. And after I think like I started to go a little bit more in quarantine, even if it wasn't in 2017 when I moved to Liverpool, and after my sister got education over here,
Hmm.
and I had some more friends in that, and yeah, so from then I trying to get a job ever since from here. So it's been a long time, 2 years ish,
Hmm.
and basically yeah. Since then, my parents have moved back. My sister completed her stuff here, and then tried to get something over here. Did little bits and bobs, and moved back. And I've been on my own now for a couple of years, probably since like I think the last memorable thing is I watched Last Jedi with my dad end of 2017. But after that, I feel like I've been in quarantine ever since. Like it's
Wow.
yeah, like I'm not really a lot of going out person either. So
I can't imagine what it's like for you because I live in a house. Um, I would, as everybody knows, I direct stuff, and I had a really good career in Vancouver at one point, and I was there for X amount of years, and then I had to come home because my dad was not well. So I ended up having my own flat, but then I ended up ditching it to live with my mum because we had a mortgage on the house, and when dad had gone, we learned that he wasn't really paying the mortgage; he's only paying the interest. So my mum was in trouble. So I moved in with my mum to complete the mortgage, and I'm still here. And plus, my brother lives here too, because this is the family house. So I'm kind of lucky that way. I'm not alone. I'm not on my own. I have
Hmm.
my mum, I have my brother, but I can't imagine what it's like for you. I mean, just being on your own, you probably went stir crazy like every
yeah,
day. Because if I was on my own, I can't stand my own company. For God's sakes, if I was on, I'd go crazy. I'd go crazy, man.
I mean, like yeah, most of the things I know are video games and like culture news from YouTube because that's literally what I've been doing for 2 years. It's
Yeah.
and it's like it's not the problem is I can't complain either because I'm not in a bad situation. My dad is a GP, so he gets paid well. So basically,
Right.
I'm in a house that's paid for me. So like, oh,
Oh,
am I gonna go like boo hoo? Like
yeah.
it's just from if I would have if I had found a job early on and I got into a routine,
Mm,
I probably would have been really lucky. But from circumstances and for example, I've got some mental health problems and stuff like that. It's not been as easy as it should have been,
Hmm.
and I think the sometimes the environment does matter a lot. Having
yeah.
all my family's in Spain, so it definitely that definitely would help. I feel.
Yeah, for sure. Though uniquely, as you said, the rest of the world is now keeping you company in that
Yeah.
same kind of isolation. Do you feel like a little more solidarity now that we're all joining you in this?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely feels a lot better, and there is little things that have always helped, like the how the internet's evolved for sure.
Hmm.
Definitely helps with my lifestyle a lot, so I'm not just on my own at home or completely.
Hmm.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, well, that's great. I was going to also say that you mentioned your last big thing you did with your father was watch The Last Jedi. Was
Yeah.
that as dismal as experience as it was for many of us?
I mean, like at the time, I have to say, I was a lot more of at least in the movie terms, a lot more of a casual fan found all of the, until I found all of the channels and I started to really look deeper into it and start to treat it like, because I really love Star Wars, started to treat it like a really big passion. And then you start to, all the faults start to come into your eyes.
Hmm.
But I mean, I did since then I have seen Joker with my dad, which is a really good palate cleanser to that, to the least, because that
Uh,
was actually a good movie. So
It was. It was. It
yeah,
was a very good movie.
yeah. I was going to say it's ironic that a movie that is great but rather disturbing is a
oh yeah,
palate cleanser than
uh,
something like The Last Jedi
yeah.
would.
Well,
I think.
I feel because of the message was so important and what I've dealt with, and I'm no doubt I've had mental health problems. Like the message of that movie was so important.
Oh, interesting. See, I have not seen The Joker. What would you say was the message of the movie?
It's just how they didn't sugarcoat anything, and they showed a man when you know how he turned out, of course, but like they showed a man in his most what's the word?
Vulnerable.
Yeah,
Vulnerable.
exactly. Yes. They showed a man most vulnerable, didn't sugarcoat it. They didn't and like it was just a good movie in the way that how he went bad. It wasn't they didn't over the top it to make him look like it was like a slow, gradual and he how he got there, but it was just a beautiful it was just a beautiful movie how they showed it.
I
Hmm.
think I think movies that are honest, and I
Yeah.
say this, are the ones that stay in your mind long before you've left the cinema, and you can see the reason why some films fail when they're just there to make money. Some films, they're just there to make money are good, and and you have a good laugh and you enjoy it. But today, with I keep bringing this up with the agenda and everything else going on, um, those movies are not they're not good for obvious reasons. So that's why people either don't go and see it or see it and say it's terrible. But even things like directing, I learned this a long time ago. So the reason why some directors are better than others is because let's just take the example of Steven Spielberg, for instance, right? The reason why he's a good director is because he doesn't only point the camera at something. What he does is he uses the camera to express a mood, right? And I don't know if people understand this. Like, for instance, I don't know if did I say this to you before, Tracer? I can't remember.
No, this is
It,
fascinating. Good.
so there's a scene in Jaws, right? Have you
Mhm.
seen Jaws,
Oh.
Revanite?
Yeah, I've seen Jaws, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you remember this scene in Jaws where basically all three of them are sailing out to get the shark, and there's a shot from Quint's house with a window, and on the window they have the jaws of a dead shark, and then within the window you see the little boat, you know,
Hmm.
going towards the sea. And so you got to ask yourself, what was Spielberg saying with that shot? Basically, he was saying
Yeah.
they were sailing into danger with the
Yeah.
teeth and the window. But when you watch a film like that, you subconsciously read it, but you don't consciously read it, and that's the power of direction. That's why there are good directors, there are better directors, and there are crappy directors, and that's just one example of a facet of art. The same thing with films. If a film is made with passion and and logic, and everybody gives 100%, it'll always come off the film, always. But if it's just made because everybody just needs a job and they just make it with no passion whatsoever, you can tell by the first frame that it's just going to be, a so-so movie. So I I hope I explained that well.
Mhm.
Maybe not, but there you go.
No, no, and that's fascinating. And Jaws, I think, is a masterpiece on so many different levels.
It is.
And I
Same thing
think,
with Joker.
yeah,
Yeah.
Joker's very well directed. Very, as Revenant is saying, it's a clear indication of the problems of someone that is mentally, ill, and also it tells the truth about how the government treats that, and
Yeah.
that's basically what the Joker is about. So, and a lot of people connected with that because there are a lot of people that are mentally ill out there that can't find the help because of various reasons, and a lot of people that are ill. So that's why the film connected with so many people.
Yeah, the film wouldn't have been as powerful if they had completely cut out the part where he goes into the office and he's like getting basically like he's looking at her and telling her stuff and she looks like she couldn't give a damn. And it was like she was just there to take the appointment and not really listen to what he says.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people connect with that because even that's happened to me as well. It's happened to everybody. And I think when you got a film that's honest, it connects with the audience. Everybody seems to forget that films are about connecting with people that watch it.
Yeah.
If you're I guess if you're like Michael Bay and you just want to make spectacle, it's not really going to connect. It's going to connect, but it's not, if you know what I mean. It's got to reach
mhm,
deeper if you
That's such a
really enjoy the film.
that's such a sad story because I felt like the first ones in those series, it felt like there was some emotion more to it, and then it just evolved into explosions and nothing mattering anymore.
Yeah.
In that in, in, in that in that in that trilogy or movie series, yeah.
I mean, even if you watch The Sound of Music, it's the same thing. The Sound of Music is such a even though I don't like musicals, it's such a well-made film, and it connects in a lot of levels. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
about the Nazis and about love and about how how someone is mistreated and and about and the music just elevates it. The emotions, it elevates the emotion. Even from the start, the beginning with that helicopter shot where she's on the mountain spinning around.
yeah,
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's a film that's well thought out
And
via directing, via everything. That's why it connects to you.
yeah,
yeah,
and it's
and
so masterful.
yeah, and to make a point, comparison to what you said about Nazis. You go
Yeah,
from like them having that has an importance. It's there for a reason. Then now you have Westworld, which I watched Gary's and Doomcock's Inquisition the other day, and they
yeah,
had killing Nazis for the sake of killing Nazis
yeah,
because
yeah,
you could,
yeah,
and because white man bad.
yeah, yeah. But this is
There was no reason for that to be there. They just had to
no.
show a woman killing white men.
I think it's even like you just got to think about it logically, right? You know, when you have a sibling and they're in trouble and they come to you for help and they're at
Yeah,
their last tether and you sit them down and you start talking to them, whatever they're putting out, if you care about them, it transfers into you. Therefore, you care about that person, right? It's
yeah,
it's not rocket science. So it's the same thing with movies. If you make a movie and you make it with a clear conscience and you know the direction it wants to go in and you're passionate about it, your passion's going to go from you to the set, from the set to the editing room, from the editing room to the audience that was watching it. You know,
yeah,
it just that makes sense to me. Then again, I might be talking crap. Who knows?
No, no, absolutely. And something my father used to always tell me is a great movie either makes you laugh, makes you cry, or
Hmm.
scares the living daylights out of you.
Yeah,
And
if
if it's
they're good.
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And
One of the it's amazing again about the Joker movie is like how such a simple message is so powerful, and people may not think it matters, but one of the things that gets done in the movies is like it shows you how important it is to listen to somebody
Yeah,
ooh,
yeah.
because people don't like people say nowadays it's like it's important to listen, but does people still not listen to people?
I mean, the bit at the ending where he's in the chat show and Robert De Niro makes a quick judgment, which is completely wrong because we saw what happened on the tube. You know, as the audience, we saw what's happened on the tube. He saved that girl on the tube. Yet,
Yeah,
Robert De Niro's character made a quick judgment on him there and then, in front of the audience and everything. So, and we're talking about a man at the end of his tether that nobody was helping him, and he was
mhm,
slowly going mad. And I'm not justifying what he did at the
yeah,
end, but you can understand it, and that's the power of the movie. You can understand it, and that's the thing, and you connect to it because everybody's human, and
yeah,
that's why
because
the movie worked.
you can imagine that in real life, parallel situations are going on where the person doesn't go over the limit, doesn't go on a spree, but because of a single act that was maybe not even as bad as that, they're still getting
Mm.
locked up because they're breaking the law.
Yeah.
But
mhm.
it's just because someone had listened to them down the line, or
Mm.
or maybe it's just, of course, another message that sometimes how flawed the justice system is in certain
Yeah.
regards.
I mean, if people listened to what was happening, you had Bill Gates, you had loads of people who were saying, beware of what's going to happen now. They were kind of warning us about what's happening now. If people had only listened, then maybe wouldn't be in this situation. If the world was more honest, maybe won't be in this situation. I don't know. I don't know. It's a human thing, and the more people are swayed by money, the more crap we're going to get in the world. I reckon,
Yeah,
because it's all about money at the end of the day, right?
yeah. Well, not about money. It's the love of money. The love of money is the root
Of
of all evil.
course.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's the love of money when you make your idol the gold. It'll come back and bite you in the rear end.
Mm,
I think that's so fascinating, though, what you're talking about with the Joker. And then, of course, we had to give a disclaimer. No, we don't say that
Yeah.
that's a logical conclusion. No one
no,
has
of course not.
permission to do that. But the fact
Mm,
that it's a psychological study of
yeah.
what the journey somebody can make along that road.
Mm,
That's pretty intense, and that is a discussion that we're having here in the United States, especially with some of these uh, people that are involved in these mass shootings.
Oh
That
yeah.
was there a time where there could have been an intervention, and the more that you
Exactly.
study it, the more that it's found. Yes, there were several moments where this individual in the school system fell through the cracks, and there's several reasons for that. I would recommend the book Why Meadow Died by Andrew Pollock, whose daughter was murdered at Parkland. He documents from the time this kid was 5 years old. Now he's a monster, no two ifs, ands, or buts about it, but the signs of the fact that he was a very dangerous individual, perhaps not by a fault of his own, in the sense of he definitely was extremely disturbed, and the fact that it was manifesting itself from a young age, and the reasons why he was just pushed along. There's some political reasons why, has more to do with how school systems deal with uh, children, but it's worth looking at, and I think that a movie like The Joker should then point us to within our sphere, whatever your sphere is, to see, well, what can we do to assist? I think we can all agree that mental health is an area that is dreadfully underserved.
Oh yeah.
Um,
well, I mean, everything's underserved. Let's face it. I mean,
mhm,
why is our nurses and doctors and the people that do the most important jobs in the world, like firemen,
Paid less, right?
policemen, why are they paid less than Brad Pitt? Yet they go out every day risking their lives. For what? For us. Yet they have to fight for their pay. That's just one example of how, you know, screwed up the world is. It makes no sense. And I think a lot of people are beginning to realize that now, you know.
Yeah.
mhm.
I
There's
think I
different
think
real.
I think it's important us as a human race to stress the importance of keep improving because we do not need to be the people that see Joker and see these mass shootings people and just go, oh, this guy was insane. He was born bad. No, you need to dig deeper. We need to find out where it went wrong, and we need
Mm,
to try and we need to. Well, I hope that we get good people that will go into the system and try and break that up sooner.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and in some cases, let's just be honest, there are some people that are too dangerous to be out in the world.
Yeah.
There's a really good episode of Criminal Minds where they are dealing with a young man who's turning himself in, and he's turning himself in because he's been researching serial killers, and he realizes that he has those urges. And the head of the Criminal Minds BAU interviews him all that, and he does determine this guy is going to end up being a serial killer, because at first they kind of, it's like, well, whatever, just a kid saying this, but and it ended up with him trying to commit suicide because he had enough humanity in him that he said, I'm going to hurt people, I'm going to hurt people. And it ended up with him being institutionalized and probably never getting out. But on the other hand, it was also not like, oh, that's a terrible thing that he's in there. It was a recognition, and
Mm,
he was getting the help he needed. But yes, he needed to be in psychiatric care his entire life. Of course, they use that with the serial killer thing, but I think that in many ways, because of what has happened in the past, where there have been horror stories in asylums where they weren't treated well, that the idea of institutionalizing somebody is frowned upon because everyone sees it as just locking somebody away. But I think that we can do a more humanitarian way for the people that need it. There are people,
Yeah.
we know it, there are people that can't function usually what ends up happening, they end up homeless or they end up committing suicide. And these people can be saved if maybe destigmatizing it, but also making sure that there's a lot of dignity in those situations.
But what about okay, so I agree with everything you're saying, but what about the was it Columbine shooting? Am I saying that word right?
Hmm.
The school shooting. They made a documentary on everything. And did they ever explain why those kids decided to go and buy a gun and shoot everyone in the school, then shoot themselves? Did we ever find out what made them do that? I
Yes
mean,
and no. Well, first of all, they did not buy a gun because, of course, you
all
cannot.
right,
It was. I mean, they were definitely illegally gotten
okay.
guns. Uh, my humble opinion,
Mm.
when it's studied, there is something called evil, and these kids were definitely immersed in that. There is not evidence in their case, say for example with the Parkland, and I am not in any way excusing that, but it did not the same history at all. And even with the Parkland person, I mean, I do believe in evil. I don't make a secret of that. That there sometimes are some things that are just pure evil, and these boys in that particular situation were obsessed with the darkness. I'll just put it to you that way.
But
Um,
how? How did this happen?
well, my personal opinion, you know how how I feel when I look at that. I look at it as the mystery of evil. I do believe because I believe in God. I
Yeah,
also believe there's
there's some
somebody
things that
else.
just there's some things that just don't make sense, right? And it points
Yeah,
towards that.
Mm.
yeah. I absolutely do believe in that. I do believe that there is a force for evil, and that's the only way you can explain it. It's like the same way when you look at Hitler. How can you explain that not just Hitler, but people following him? That's always the other thing. We always have evil people, but to get a whole nation following him and all the people to be complicit in the slaughter of those
Mm.
people in the gas chambers, of the Jews and all the other victims of the Holocaust. There's only one
Well,
way I describe it, and it's like the church lady on the old Saturday Night Live skit. Could it be Satan? I do
no,
believe that.
well, I think it's all to do with it's all to do with like for instance, when you've got
Are you gonna say indoctrination, aren't you?
yeah, it's all to do with that. And I mean, look at who's the guy that convinced everybody that he was the second coming, and if they all kill themselves, they're all going to go to heaven or whatever it was. And he just preyed on the weak, and and it is as you say, he's in the power and he's in the government. Of course, everybody's going to listen to him, and well, majority of people are going to listen because in those days, everybody thought the government was doing things, for the right of the people, which now we
Maybe
know that's not the truth.
maybe the people were indoctrinated, but
Mm,
we got to think about him. I don't remember hearing about many bad things in his life that led him to that. It's like he flipped on a dime.
Mm,
I know he got rejected to art school, but
mm.
mm.
I think that's like a big that's a bit extreme for a rejection to a school.
Yeah, loads
Yeah.
of people are ejected from art school. I would perhaps counter this, Ian, if you look at
Mm,
a Nazi rally, one of his rallies, and don't look at Hitler, but look at the people.
yeah.
That is not just people going, oh, well, it's the legitimate government. These people are
They were passionate, yeah.
brainwashed. Yeah, I mean, it's bat crap, insane, mind washing group
But it's the
hypnosis.
same thing that's happening today with the small things, like as you guys mentioned about the whole feminist drive, feminist agenda. That's kind of like brainwashing as well, teaching people that white men are bad, and in every sense of the word, and and all that stuff. It's kind of brainwashing, so I can understand it. I can understand how one man could set that in motion. I wouldn't I wouldn't I wouldn't boil it down to the devil, even though we all have the capacity to do something really bad. I think we're capable of a lot of things, and I think he was capable of convincing millions of people to follow what he was doing. It's not out the realms of possibility. It's within. So I don't know. I kind of agree with you, but then again, I don't. If you know what I mean.
I see your comparison, Ian, but
Mm,
with what Teresa was saying,
mm.
this I think that this thing now with the feminist agenda, I think these people they are kind of indoctrinated into it, and but they'll follow to a point. These people went beyond that point. Like
Mhm.
this is like, I like you would think at some point like either the people were extremely shielded from it, so they didn't know anything, which would go with Ian's point, so they didn't know anything, so that's why they were supporting him, or if they did see it, like how could they live
No,
with
they
that? Do you
did.
think do you
Some
think they would
some people
like
did.
rebel or something?
No,
Yeah.
some did. Some did. I mean, Schindler was one of them. He's just one out of thousands of Germans that went against what the Nazis were doing. I mean, Schindler is just one. He's one of the most famous ones that
Yeah.
went beyond to save Jews, because
Yeah.
there were a lot of people that didn't believe what the Nazis were doing. So, and also remember, there was a lot of young men, influential men, that became Nazis and believed in what Hitler was doing. So when you're young that way, you can be, well, so they say, you can be slowly,
Mhm.
Influence, yeah.
Yeah.
convinced, yeah, influenced.
To a
I
certain
don't know.
degree, though I did want to interject just slightly. Disclaimer here
Mm.
at Quarantine Minds: we are not saying that the feminists are the same as Nazis.
Yeah.
I know, Ian, that's not what you meant.
That's
Uh,
not what I meant.
I know that's not what you meant. I'm just giving you a disclaimer because like what the Revanite said is there's a certain level that you would hope
Mm.
that they,
Yeah.
if all of a
Yeah,
sudden they're like,
I hope humanity had gone enough that they wouldn't go to those extremes
yeah, not again.
if they were pointed that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for sure, but just the fact that so many were, because there were some that saw it and fought against it, but there were also millions that did not.
Mm.
And even the brainwashing of the children, an example I always like to give is the Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI. Uh, he was a child at the time, and his family and all of them, they knew exactly, and he had to go, for example, to the Nazi youth stuff because you had to, or else they'd kill your parents or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But he never got indoctrinated, and they kept their family kept firm and all. I'm just saying that
Mm.
if you
Yeah,
have a
it's
family unit that teaches you right from wrong, I think that you can be not immune, but that is where the true resistance happens to evil. It happens amongst you and amongst your friends. And if you have that solid foundation, then
mm.
you won't be vulnerable to that.
Yeah.
Or you'll, and I think that in many cases, like in these cults, there's a reason why they do go for people that don't have a strong family unit, don't have friends, don't have family, don't have someone that can check them and say, hey, this is weird. No, just come out with us. We're normal people. They get the lonely, they get the vulnerable, and they're very malleable in that sense.
Mm. Yeah.
But I still think it's evil. I mean, I still hold to that because I think that there's a big difference between bad decisions and even bad thinking and just pure unadulterated Nazi, like true Nazi, what we see there.
Mm.
And cases like we were just saying about some of the more evil acts that people commit, I would say the same thing about serial killers. You cannot explain it. They have tried to explain
Mm.
why people end up like that because loads of people have bad childhoods. Loads of people have situations in their lives, but they don't go off and commit mass murder or become serial killers.
Yeah, well, I watched a lot of crime shows, and I watched one where it was kind of unexplainable, where the kid had a good upbringing. The parents were always trying to treat him well, and like the kid would just act up like some like horrible things from young, like he tried to drown his sister or whatever, like,
Mm-hmm.
and was just like he would just do stuff like that, like laugh at his like siblings, like when they got hurt and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I don't know how you can explain that. Like,
Well, it depends, isn't it? I mean, nobody ever knows the full story of what's behind anything. Let's face it, unless that person experience it tells you and is truthful about telling you. But 9 times out of 10, when people say they're speaking the truth, it's always a romanticization of the truth, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to figure out what the truth is. But my guess would be that it would always lie with his upbringing. Maybe his upbringing wasn't as good as the rest of them, or it could be thousands of reasons. I don't believe someone's born evil, and I don't believe that someone could grow up not caring about the things around him or people around him. I think they've got to be really unhinged to
yeah,
think that way. And I think all serial killers are unhinged, all of them. There's no way that's normal that you can kill
yeah,
someone and dismember someone, put them in black bags, and chuck them in the river, and not think about that. Then the while you're sleeping, if that's the way you are, then yeah, you're unhinged.
yeah.
So maybe it's a medical reason. I don't know.
The
Yeah.
lack of remorse, like just to do that type of stuff. Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
normal anyway. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
it isn't, is it?
oh, here in America, where we caught the BTK killer, and
Mm,
when he gave his confession on TV at the trial, he was so matter of fact. He would just
mm,
describe the most heinous things as though he was describing taking out the garbage. And no remorse. They're crazy. And that's where I say, in the extreme cases, sometimes the only thing you can do is just lock people up, because you
mm.
cannot keep society safe. You cannot rehabilitate them. Of course, the problem is how do you find them? Because usually we don't find
you find them
serial
too late,
killers,
right?
yeah, until they kill. Because I mean, we all know that there's lots of loners out there, or people that sometimes you're hanging around and you're thinking, yeah, this person's a little bit wacky. Maybe I won't hang out with them anymore. And then maybe they become a serial killer. That hasn't happened with me. But if they become a
Nor
serial
me.
killer, yeah, yeah, everyone will say, oh, yeah, I had a bad vibe about him and everything. But just because you have a bad vibe about someone, it could just be that they're awkward. It doesn't mean that they're
Mm,
serial killers. You only catch them and call them serial killers after they've killed several people.
mm.
Yeah, I've actually I know someone that I used to go to school with. I'm obviously gonna not gonna say any names, but
Mhm.
he was that kid was like way different from everyone else. He wore trench coats. He carried around knives. He hang around with younger girls, and I've heard some pretty disturbing stories. But he's never been caught with anything. He's never been charged with
Mhm.
anything, as far as I know.
Mhm.
And he would definitely give me those vibes. But until they do anything, like you said, that they're not going to be caught.
Yeah. Well, and especially because you have to have the rights of the innocent. I mean, just imagine if they started being like in Minority Report. They're like, this person shows these traits, so well, we'll just lock them up before they commit a crime. Yeah, you can't do that. That's not justice. That's not
Have you
just.
have you seen Don't F with Cats, that documentary, how they caught that serial killer, two people on the internet. You ever see that one?
I'm sorry.
Hmm?
Wow, they caught serial killers with cats.
No, what
Oh.
happened was, okay, so it's on Netflix. It's easy to find. Don't
Hmm.
F with Cats. Obviously, I won't say the F word,
Hmm.
but it's really interesting, guys. You should watch it. Basically, it's about these two internet people. They saw a video, and it was just a hand and a cat, and this guy had put the cat in this plastic bag, and he suffocated the cat, and it was on video. It was on YouTube, and they were really upset about this. So they were trying to find out where this was shot and where it came from, so they can get justice. But then the story spirals out of control. They find out that he was, the next thing he done, he killed another cat, and the next thing he did, he said it was all leading to him killing someone, an actual person. To cut long story short, they caught him. And if it wasn't for those two people on the internet that kept pursuing him and just find out where he was, just looking at pictures, find out, because they were looking at the plugs, see what country he was from, and they were really obsessed with trying to get this guy because they can sense that he's going to go on to something else. And he ended up killing someone based on the film Basic Instincts. I don't know if you know that film, Basic Instincts. He killed a person the same way they killed someone got killed in that film.
So he copycat killed, basically, yeah.
Well, he nobody got it, but at the end, these two people literally figured it out. That's the one, yeah. They figured it out because they watching the film, and all the lines he was saying when he got caught by the police were lines from that film. It's really freaky. All this is true, all of it. So if you ever get a chance to watch it, watch that. That will do your head in.
It sounds interesting. I'm like, but will Teresa be able to watch it? Because I know she likes cats a lot.
No, but they don't show that footage. They don't show that footage.
Okay, good.
They tell that obviously it's been taken off YouTube, but they show a bit of it, but they don't show any of that footage at all. But these two people that started it, they're fascinating. They went out of their way to try and find this guy, and thank God they caught him at the end due to these two people. And it was like, it's not that it happened in 6 months. I think it was like 3 years it went on for, so those people didn't give up because they knew he was going to do something big.
Let me understand. Let me make sure I understand this. What happened was they saw this guy doing these things to cats, and then they were able to get investigated, and then they discovered that he had actually murdered a human being. Is that correct?
No. What happened was that you couldn't see him. All you can see is the cat in his hands and hear his voice. So when they saw the video, they were disgusted, and they reported to the police, and police said they couldn't do anything about it. So these two people, one was in Nevada and the other one was in New York, I think. They were chatting to each other, and they were trying to find out where the video was made by going through each frame, looking at the plugs in the wall, looking at things in the background to figure out where the hell that was shot. If they can find out where it was shot, they can maybe find out where he was and who he was. And so they tried that, and they had a Facebook page open up for it, and people were giving them advice and this and that and the other. And it spirals out of control where, I'm not going to give it away because it's well worth watching. But in the end, they caught him.
Okay, when you say they caught him, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what crime did they get him for then?
But he killed someone. He killed.
That's what I said. Yeah, that's what I was saying. So they found out that he had actually killed a human, not just messed with cats.
Yeah. He literally killed this guy and tied him to a bed, like in the film Basic Instincts. And then they show you the interrogation scene where he's sitting there and he's got a cigarette and he's saying, "Can I have a cigarette?" He says to the guy, and the guy goes, "Okay." He gives him a cigarette and he goes, "Can you light it for me?" And that's the same thing Sharon Stone says in Basic Instincts.
Correct.
So once they were watching it, they were like, "Wait a moment, that's so familiar." And then they went through Basic Instincts, and it was the same lines from Basic Instincts. So this guy, thank God he only killed one person, because if they didn't stop him, he was going to carry on killing people.
Wow.
So
you heard it here first, kids. Don't mess with cats.
Cats.
I was about ready to say cats will get you in the end, because we all know that they're the real dominators of the earth, and
cats.
They're working with the aliens. Well, this is one heck of a conversation. You never know what's going to happen on Quarantined Minds, because Quarantined Minds always want to know. To shift it a little bit.
Yeah, let's shift.
What many of you know that Ian, as he has said, is a film director, and he has done several works, and one of them is Rebecca Gold, and I'm going to put that in the chat here. So what can you tell us a little bit about your project, Rebecca Gold? What inspired you to do it? And whatever you want
Again.
to say. Yes, absolutely, for a quarantine mind.
Okay, so Rebecca Gold was made out of desperation because um, even though I direct stuff and I make stuff, I'm not really considered part of the film industry. So,
Mhm,
especially the British film industry, I'm part of the independent sector. So, going back to 1985, when I made my first film, The Killing Zone, which we tried to get people interested in it, and in the end, we ended up doing a fundraiser for The Killing Zone. I think we're the first people to do a one of the first people to do a it wasn't an Indiegogo, but it was kind of like Indiegogo, and
mhm,
people gave us money. We made our film, our first film. So the reason why I made Rebecca Gold's because I've tried so hard to raise money for projects, and in the end, I just gave up because the only thing that's stopping me from making stuff is money. So once I
mhm,
sorted that out, I decided to make stuff, and I've pledged to myself I will make something, try and make something every year. Don't let a year go by without making something, because I believe this is what I was born to do. And so Rebecca Gold was made. It's a 5-part web series. I think the longest episode is only 5 episodes. Longest episode's 9 minutes. The rest are 5, 7, and I think 8. One episode, and it's not much of a chore. And
mhm,
if you watch it, you'll love it, as far as
mhm,
I'm concerned. So, yeah, it's just a web series. Just displaying everybody's talents, from Katie, who plays the main character, to me, to everybody, in fact, right
mhm.
across the board. So there you go. That's
Yeah.
me.
Well, that's great. I really want to zone in on what you just said. Don't let another year go by without creating something.
Yeah,
Let that
yeah.
sink in, kids, because especially under this quarantine, if you find yourself at home with extra time, maybe this is the time to create something. Perhaps you're not a director like Ian or me, a musician or whatever I do. What is it that you like to create? Everyone creates something, or everyone has something they've always wanted to do but haven't had the time to do it. And I know people are in a great deal of anxiety, especially if you're worried about your health or if you're worried about money and worried about your job. But maybe in this moment, maybe this is your time to do that one thing, even if it's one thing. Like, don't let this plague go by without doing one thing that you really want to do.
I
Make it,
totally agree with you,
yeah.
because um, you know what, right? You can't do something on your own.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you're a writer, or a filmmaker or a musician, okay, you would be surprised how many people out there that want to be part of something. And
Hmm.
all you have to do is ask, and you'll find that people just come out and trying to help you. Obviously, you got to make a judgment call of who invite into your little world. Make sure that what they're saying is what they can give you. But once you figure that out, you'll find that people will just come out their way to help you because they need something and you need something. And
Hmm.
that's how you should proceed. I mean, don't let money stop you from doing what you think you were born to do. And don't lie to yourself as well. If you lie to yourself, you're in hiding to nowhere. If you say, "Oh yeah, I'm a really good writer," and you know you're not,
Hmm.
stop right there, because you're just wasting your life and you're lying to yourself. But I honestly think that, what really hit home with this
Hmm.
is, even this is recent now. I always thought this way anyway, is that I'm a lot older. I don't want to leave this world without giving it my best. What I was born to do was this. So, and also the producer of The Killing Zone, my very first film, has recently died of a brain tumor. And
Okay.
and he's kind of, we had a bit of a falling out. But I have always considered him my friend, and when I heard a couple of days ago that he died, it's left a little, a hole in my heart, and I'm very, very saddened by the fact, because we and him went through hell making The Killing Zone and other films as well, and it's a shame that he's gone now. But that just goes to show how short life is. And if
Mm-hmm.
we don't choose to do something now rather than later, we will regret it. In fact, I regret not touching base with him when I learned that he had a brain tumor. I actually regret that. I should
Mm-hmm.
have, but he I mean, it's not like we weren't talking to each other, because I did make a short film with him a long time ago, and we were all right with each other. But when I heard that he was suffering from a brain tumor, I didn't contact him. Maybe I should. So that's one of the regrets I have in life. So I just think that, if look, the only way you're going to understand it is if something hits you like that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then you'll understand it.
Yeah. Ian, I'd like to just go a teeny bit back to something you said. I agree with
Mm.
you about if you're not a great writer, don't bother.
Mm.
I Miss Martin just wants to bring it back a little bit. Maybe you're not a great writer yet. Have the humility, perhaps, to look at this time and
Yeah,
hone your
but that's
craft.
yeah, but
I,
that's not what I meant.
oh,
What I
okay.
meant was, well, this is what I believe. Everyone inherently knows what they're good at, and some people, right, pretend that they're good at one thing, and they know in their hearts that they're not, and they end up convincing themselves that they are good at that.
I
And
see.
what they do is, instead of creating, they end up destroying as they move along with this lie. And I think you'll be a better person if you admitted to yourself that you're not good at that, and find something that you are good at. Yes, it is possible to grow in something that you're not good at, and grow and get better and better and better at it. But if you don't have that thing inside you for that particular subject, then don't destroy the things around you and try and convince yourself that that's for you, because when you know it isn't. That's
Oh,
what I
I
meant.
see. Okay, well, that's not. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we were on two different channels there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's a very good point. But I would also say,
Mm.
Miss Martin out there, is kids use this time though. If you think,
Yeah.
I'm thinking more like the younger crowd. If you think you might want to be a writer, maybe you don't know yet, hone the craft. Everyone always says, if you want to be a good writer, what do? You write every day, and just practice it, because you got nothing to lose. Right now, you've got the time, and hone that craft, work on it, because I think that's one of the other myths, is that you do have many people, like what Ian said, they really have it in their heart, but they think because they have it in their heart that they don't need to work on the skill. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, you need both. You need both. So, well, I just love this conversation.
I think it's gone a bit dark.
Yeah,
Well,
but
kind of.
one thing what you said, Ian, that
Mm.
I can say that it's not true in my regard,
Mhm.
is when you
Mm.
say that people know what they're inherently good at. I don't know anything I'm good at. I've
Yeah,
done
but you're
loads of
just,
jobs.
yeah, yeah, but you're not dead yet. Do you understand what I'm saying? You still have life in front of you. You can still discover what you're good at. You just gotta believe in yourself and have faith that one day you'll discover what you're good at. Everybody's good at something. That's my point. You just got to find it. And you know what? I found a bit of success late in my life. I'm going to be 55 this year, right? And I found, with Rebecca Gold, it's a as far as I'm concerned, it's a moderate success. And the same thing with the project I did before. It's only now in my later years. I wish when I was in my 20s, I had this kind of then I have more time to kind of, what I mean, climb
Yeah,
again to get to a point. But now I realize that, life is too short. I have to keep pushing, because if life means anything, it means struggling, doesn't it? It's not the end.
of
It's
course.
not the end of the road. It's all about the struggle, because that's what it's about, in my opinion, of course. My opinion.
Maybe I should start writing, because like yesterday it seemed like Teresa was enjoying my Star Wars ideas I was putting in the
Well,
chat.
there you go.
Absolutely. Well, and like I said, even if it's fanfic, sometimes people put down fanfic. I only criticize fanfic when it's people that know
Mm.
better that write like fanfic. I
Yeah.
happen to use fanfic. I've used it to hone my writing skills. Write it down, man. Just write it down, even if it completely sucks. And you should see the sappy fanfic. I do. If you ever go to
Yeah.
fanfics.net, look up
Oh,
Teresa Martin.
What did you write about, Teresa?
Oh, I wrote about everything. My one of my first big fanfics was about the Phantom Menace, and I did a
Ah,
what if Obi-Wan listened to the Jedi Council the first time around when they said, "Don't train Anakin, don't let him
ah,
become a Jedi." What would happen? And so I explored that, and my theory
mm,
was he would not have gone to the dark side because he would have lived a normal life. He would have lived a
yeah.
frustrated life, but it would have,
mm,
by living a normal life, he would have been more integrated with family and friends, and then he would have fallen in love with Padme, and they would have gotten married, and it would have all been normal, and he wouldn't have been tempted to the pride, especially that he was very tempted to. So it was just, and it was very sappy, very, very sappy. And I did some
mm,
sappy stuff with Faramir and Erwin because I'm in love with Faramir.
Faramir is awesome, man.
Yeah. Oh, but it was sappy. It was sappy. Okay, it was fanficky. Yeah, but several of those things, because
mm.
we know in the movie they didn't really flesh out Faramir and Eowyn, so I did a lot of sappy crap with that. And from Once Upon a Time, I loved some characters. If you followed the TV show Once Upon a Time, I did some fanfic with Rumpelstiltskin and Belle and Robin Hood and Regina. And trust me, it is sappy, but it's sappy. But it was what I wanted to write, and I
Yeah.
used it to craft some things. So I'm just saying, Revanite. It doesn't matter, write it down. If
And
it's in
also,
your heart, and like
yeah.
he was saying, he came up with some good plot points in the chat. So write those down, and even if you just write a paragraph, just make a notebook.
uh,
It doesn't even have to be something you even go back to. Think about it like a sketchbook of an artist. They just sit and doodle like they, but usually they will draw one thing a day, if you will. Write one paragraph, and enjoy it. And it doesn't even have to be something that you make your living in. It could be just your hobby, but if it gives you joy and if it gives you creativity, and with the internet we can share it. I mean, go for it, man.
and
Absolutely.
the most important thing you have to remember, Revanite, is that if you feel that you fail, you should rejoice in your failure because that's the only way to learn. If you fail at something and you still have the passion for it, then rejoice that you failed because the only way to learn is to fall. And when you fall, you understand how you fell and then you just get up and keep going. And every time you fail, you should be happy that you failed, especially if you learnt why you failed. And then
Hmm.
next time round, you wouldn't be doing it again because you know. And as I said, that's the only way you could progress. My first film wasn't great. It was good, but it wasn't great. I look at it because we're going to do a live stream just to honor my friend Julian, and I was watching it again. I was thinking, oh God, I shouldn't have wrote that bit, and that dialogue is crap. But you know what? If I didn't do that one, I would never have gotten the success that I had with Rebecca Gold because I learned from doing stuff in the past, and that's what made me come to this point now that I'm more confident in writing because I went through it. So you should never ever think that it's bad that you fail or bad that you've written something bad because you can always learn something off it. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize.
One of the things I find difficult though is
Mm,
I've got a coordination disorder, so a lot of stuff for normal people is a little harder for me. And
Hmm.
I've
right.
always felt like because I've failed at certain things and I've had to like I've either not been learning and eventually it's led to me either losing the job or having to leave because I've been constantly getting yelled at or whatever. And I feel like I'm disappointed in myself, and I can tell that like my parents don't understand like why I've been let go, for example, because I like this stuff should be easy.
Mm.
If you get where I'm coming from,
Oh
but
no, I
Yeah,
certainly, yeah.
I do. My brother is he's got Asperger's, and when we were growing up, me and my sister and my brother kept telling Dad, "Look, there's something wrong with Richard. He should get checked out." My dad kept ignoring it, saying, "There's nothing wrong with him. He's just a bit stupid sometimes, but he's fine." whatever, and then Dad passed, and with Mum, and then Richard got checked out, and we found out he had Asperger's. So some people just don't understand, but
Yeah.
I think it's your responsibility to do something about it and get better at what. Yeah, everybody falls down, but we have to get up, don't we? Yeah, otherwise you might as well just stay down and die, just give up. We don't want to give up. We want to keep moving. You're never going to get to a place of happiness if you don't keep moving. Then again, you
Yeah.
never get to a place of happiness, do you?
I don't think I've ever given up. It's more that I'm frustrated. People don't understand that some things are never going to be. I'm never going to be good at certain things, but I will eventually get something that I will be good at.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well,
Mm.
and to a certain degree, coming from an older lady here, I've learned that you cannot convince other people and that you
It's
cannot
true.
base your
Yeah, it's
happiness
true.
on other people
That's true.
understanding
Mm.
that because you will be disappointed. You're setting
Yep.
yourself up for disappointment and frustration. You got to find your intrinsic within. But also, there's awesome people like us. I mean, think about how blessed we are that we have this technology, that I'm over in the United States and you guys are over in Britain and we're sitting here talking. We would never have been able to do this even 10 years ago. And to quote the great song, because you are from Liverpool after all, you'll never, never walk
I
alone.
wonder what.
Liverpool, I tell you, I'm starting to be converted to Liverpool. Uh, though though I was never, I guess, really a
but
Manchester.
you know what, right? Do you ever listen to Simon Sinek? He was talking about bosses in different companies and stuff, and he was saying that it's a real shame that bosses put pressure on their employees. Really, there shouldn't be a boss; there should be a leader.
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
like for instance, if you, Revan, if your boss couldn't see that you had a problem and just wailed on you every day, he's being an arsehole. He's not being a boss. He should sit you down and try and understand what's going on, and and say, right, so what do you think the problem is, Bob, and try and help you. Because if you put pressure on someone, all they're going to do is either quit or buckle under the pressure. And that's not, why would you want that for your employee? You want your employee to be the best he can be so he can help the company, therefore help you. So it makes no sense that you would line up 4 employees and say, look, the sales are not gone through the roof. If you guys don't do it, then you're out. You're on your air. Instead of going, look, the sales are not going up. What can we do to solve this problem? Come on, suggestions, guys. That's a leader.
Look,
That's not,
yeah, I'll give you a really basic example. So it's something really simple. So I worked in used to work in a care home, and I had to make a bed in a specific way, and
mm,
it was like very intriguing. You have to use your hands, and it had to be in a certain way. And I keep trying. I probably tried like 5 or 6 times, couldn't do it. So I just made
mm,
it the way I normally would at home, and
mm.
the managers came, started yelling, "How could you leave the bed like that? What do you think of the person?" And I'm like, well, it's not like I didn't try, but they didn't apologize, didn't say anything. They just left.
Yeah. Well,
Well, she's an idiot then.
yeah.
Instead of just asking you why and saying, do you need help, or can we get somebody to show you again, instead of having a go at you, because that doesn't make any sense. If you want loyalty from your employees, you go out your way to help them, not to tell them off through every mistake. Obviously if the employee's taking the piss, obviously, yeah, of course you're going to tell them off. But it doesn't sound like you were.
No,
That makes no sense to
I
me.
went to do something else I could do. Yeah, it was not like I just took the piss and sat down and did nothing after that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing I've also learned the hard way is there's a lot of people in supervisory positions that are actually horrible at their job.
yeah,
And eventually, though, if you do find that you are a good facilitator and the like, maybe you'll get up there in the ranks too, because it it's really sad. It's really sad because that's why there's so many unhappy workers because people suck. I guess there's no
yeah.
better way of saying it. Now, gentlemen,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna have to wind this down. I've got some commitments coming up that I need to be to. I
All right.
wanted to Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on this edition of Quarantine Minds. Thank you, the Mega Geek, aka
No
Ian,
worries.
and
No
the
worries.
Revanite.
Thank
Always
you.
great to hear from you, gentlemen. And please, everyone, go and visit their social media. I'm going to be putting that in the description. And join Miss Martin Muses, 5 o'clock Central United States, for the Corona Diaries and Quarantine Minds debuting at midnight Central Time. So have a great evening or morning and be certain to not be a spreader.
Ta-da. Bye bye.